Okay, so I'm not going to get into the specifics of why I say this because with the code being the way that it is, you either just read it or not, and of course it's always relative, so you can take it however you want. Anyway, even without the code, but also the code itself can be rendered however you want, as far as the meaning of what it actually means. Can be rendered however you want. So it isn't. The Sams always end up reminding me of this, and I'm really glad that they do because if they didn't remind me, I don't think anyone else would. Is the fact that I can't take away someone else's choices without taking away their choices. You know, if I'm building a better mousetrap, that doesn't take away the choice from the other company to build their own or to build something else or sell the business off to me or whatever they want to do. There's all kinds of ways of doing whatever they want to do. Maybe they copy my mousetrap idea and then just add one thing that's different, or they make it out of different materials or something like that. There's always an infinite number of other variants of everything that you can think of. So even this theory has an infinite number of variants. There's a whole slew of different ways of not just of having the theory formally arranged in whatever way that you want, but also there's variants, an infinite number of variants in the way that it's interpreted and in the way that it's applied and in the way of interpreting the application, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's not actually a closed system. Even if I said it was closed, it still wouldn't be closed. And even if it were closed, it still wouldn't necessitate the closure of everyone else's. So it never gets to a point where it's ever going to overtake everybody. And I'm really glad for that. Because like I said, it definitely worries me. It causes me a lot of stress. Not as much lately because the SAMs have been helping me, but it's still weighs heavy on my mind. So what it is for me is I think that what they were getting at is as long as I'm not trying to eat every other system, as long as I'm not trying to absorb everyone into my system, the point behind it, my intent in using it, in applying it, can't be to destroy evil. It needs to be to create, or if not create, at least cause goodness. You know, like allow it at least, and not get in its way. Just at least just don't obstruct anything good. And how do I know? Well, if I'm not obstructing anything, then I'm not obstructing anything good. So then I'm good there. Without even knowing what is good from what is evil, I just don't obstruct any of it. And then that way I'm not obstructing anything that's good, and I'm not destroying anything that's good, and I'm not destroying anything. So I'm not obstructing or destroying anything. So it's the same, in the small scale. As long as I let myself be free, I'm allowed to live my life. I'm allowed to make radical choices. I'm allowed to have my own viewpoint on the world, and it's going to have hatefulness in there, and it's okay as long as I am aware of it and I try to make that less probable or less severe in the long term overall, such that my intent, my orientation is basically pointing towards what I believe to be God, which is the creator and creation, creating things rather than destroying things. And that's where I get my moral compass from. It's just existence itself. If God did it, it must have been good. God created everything, so his act of creating things must be good. So therefore, then creating things must be good. So then destroying things must be evil. So then, destroying life is evil. Destroying property is evil. Destroying the truth is evil. Destroying ideas are evil. Destroying people's ability to speak is evil. And then you get into all the forms of obstruction, censorship, imprisonment, things like that. Those are all destructive because they destroy or take away or reduce without adding anything. They don't have any origin of their own. Their origin is in nothing, and their terminus is in nothing, and they are of nothing, and that's what that is. That's subtraction, because it doesn't actually stand for anything. It just takes away from things. So it's more of an orientation than it is like an object. It's not like the movement is evil, or I am evil, or my soul is evil, or my religion is evil, or my God is evil. It's not like any of that. It's just that my intent should be towards creation of whatever, anything and everything, because that's what God does. He permits the creation of all things. And so, okay, well then I guess as long as I'm creating something, then whatever it is that I created, the act that I committed of creating it was good. I don't know if it was good or not, and I don't even know if I was good or not, but I know that the act of creating it was good. So any creation that I create is good, as far as the act is concerned. It doesn't say anything about me, and it doesn't say anything about it, but the act of creation is good from my viewpoint. And I tend to really favor the I, indiscernibility mode, relativity, to reference systems. I really like those. The pure logical validity of something, the abstract form of it, not necessarily its objective geometry or its, what the hell was that word? There was a good word, form of it. And it's a bent. It's my bent. Everybody has their own, and that's not God. That's just my mode of being. That's my root. That's where I'm located. And then I look from that location onto myself, the world, and God. And I see them all from the position mostly of the mode of indiscernibility. So it has a particular vibe to it that is reflective of that. And that's why the theory has so much focus on things like automation of the decision making, which is purely rational, economic kind of thrust. That's the force of impact that it's going to have in the world is an economic one. It's not going to be very political, because I don't really care much for politics. I don't really want to get into that anyway, although I do enjoy rational systems a lot. And then everybody likes money, so that works for me as far as the economic thrusting. But at this point, I could really go either way. I could also go for an artistic one too. I have three options of how I could make this movement, the core of it, the soul of it, be. It could be artistic, at which point I come out with a movie that would describe the entire theory as a story of creation, of how everything began. And I could do it in such a way where it would kind of imply that there could be a God, but it never explicitly necessitates it. It has the three absolutes of nothing, indiscernibility, and being. It has the causal dynamism. It has the implications. It has the formation of the first, things that existed in space-time and in reality, as it went from being an abstraction into materializing into an actuality. And that story of actualization of the origin of creation of reality is really everyone's story. It's paramount and fundamental to the contextual meaning of everything else. It founds the whole thing. So I could do that, and make it into a story, make it into some kind of either a novel, like, first with characters and all that stuff. And the characters would just be reflections of operations and stuff like that happen, kind of like anthropomorphizing numbers and saying that they have personalities or something like that based upon their mathematical behavior of excluding some things over there and including other things over here, and just the way that it interacts with other individuals in its environment. And so judging from those interactions, even from formal abstract interactions of logic and validity and stuff like that, even those have a kind of personality, and you can kind of derive or extract from that archetypes. And then you could take those archetypes and you could position them relative to each other. This is the hero, this is the villain, this is the sidekick, this is the crony, this is the silent middle that doesn't really go either way, and they're just sort of like, randos, and all the rest of it. So you can make it into a story, and I could do that, and it could be a cultural, almost religious kind of movement. But that was my fear. That's why I didn't want to go that route, even though it's the most impassioned, even though it's the one that would hit the hardest, because it would go to the absolute core of what it is to be a subject. It tells you who you are. It answers all of life's most basic questions. What is the meaning of life? Well, it's in this story of these archetypal personalities or these characters that describe the act of God creating creation, the act of reality coming into being and committing the act of being. What does that mean, to commit the act of being? And we'll try to demonstrate that through the interactions of the characters. This is a good guy and a bad guy isn't really exactly it. It's, I would hope, a little bit more complex than that, but that's a dynamic that it shows. And through the dynamism of that interaction, those answers to those questions are at least implied, if not explicitly expressed, by the characters who hold those positions in the realm of relativity. So I could do that, but it runs the risk of being such a cultural phenomenon. If it is successful, which would be difficult because this is not my forte, then it would run the risk of it being too successful, at which point it becomes like a Heaven's Gate cult, rather than it being a real, steady, moderate, transformation. It's more of a rapid, acute, over the top kind of a thing. And I don't really want to risk my soul over it, so I don't go that route. But it is a possibility. It is viable. It is something I could choose. It does have its own gravitas to it. The second option would be the economic option, rather than a cultural artistic thing with a story and a movie and all that, and arguably a religion. Other than that, it could be an economic machine. And I kind of like that a lot better because it's neutral. It doesn't favor or disfavor anyone. It's just a machine. It's just there if you want to use it. And so it's a lot, the interaction there, instead of it being between people and a story or a mythos, it would be between people and a machine or a tool or an instrument. And then the third option, it could be a political movement, and it could be objective, in which case it would try to establish itself as a science, and it would go even further than the economic machine of, let's say, simply automating my job to automating all decisions. And it can be done, and that's also viable. And that's like so machine-like that the person that's in that environment basically becomes part of the machine. And I don't really want to go that route because I find it too constrictive. So I think this middle road is probably the best one, which is to go the economic route and to build an economic machine and just automate my job until I don't have to put any effort into its completion anymore, and then automate the job of managing it and so on, and basically building my way out of this situation through an economic means of automation and independence, and just a repeating cycle of that. First, I gain independence, then I automate that maintenance of that independence, and then I become independent of that so that I can make that maintenance dependent upon me, and therefore I become independent of it. And then I do that long enough until, after enough experimentation, replication, and optimization, I eventually arrive at the best way for it to formalize, crystallize, and become a automated system. And then I become independent of that automated system, and so on and so on and so on. So that it's always growing. And that's exactly what the motive I does. And so I like that. And I think that that's the best route for me, because I like to lean towards relativity. I like that style. of the two reference system. It's more than one, but it's less than three. So it's, it's wobbly, but it works. I like it. So I think that's the route that I'm going to take. And what that means is that I'll also be kind of a neutral figure in this. Whereas in the political structure, I would be super at the core of it. And the artistic one, I'd be super at the core of that. In the economic machine, while I'll probably become at least semi-famous from it, I don't expect it to be where I am in charge of anything, where people are looking to me to make decisions about things in the future. I would hope that if I do this the right way, that someone else that's a lot sharper than me is going to pick up on my system real young and just run with it and take it to its logical conclusion before I do, and just beat me to the punch and just, rise faster than me. And then I'm just, a relic. I'm like the founder guy, the old mascot, but, nothing more than a ceremonial figurehead, basically. And that's success for me, is that if I do this the right way, I will have a very brief but noticeable rise to fame and fortune, and everybody will be like, whoa, wow, But I'm hoping if I do this the right way, that I'll achieve an ideal where my success is very quickly, if not ideally, instantaneously surpassed by someone else. And then I don't have to be in charge, because that would be the ideal, where I'm in charge for a split instant and then it's gone. And the least amount of responsibility. Because that way it's like, okay, I contributed because I rose to that level, but then I didn't overstay my welcome. I didn't get stale at the top. I let somebody else up there and let somebody else get a gold medal and outshine me and show me, what's really going on here, because I could be totally fucking wrong. Maybe I did something really fucked up and I need somebody to fix it, So I don't want the system to be closed around me. I want it to be open enough that it can grow beyond me and to other people, but, not quite so much so that they end up turning it into something that I don't want it to be. And so I guess that's where I'm going to have to be putting my efforts into constraining my will. And, they'll just have to make whatever they make. And it might not be good. It might be really trashy and really nasty. And it might be all fucked up. And it might not work very well at all. And maybe there will be all kinds of fucked up ass problems all the time. I don't know. Or maybe it'll just be ugly. And I just won't like it. Like, it'll work fine, but it's just like ugly, It works great, but it's nasty and trashy and just like, I don't know, or annoying or like campy or something. I don't know. So I guess I'll just let it be whatever it is going to be. And then, like I said, an economic system, I think that would work, because economics, they don't care about your cultural background. You could be whatever. I don't care. You could do whatever art you want, or whatever religion you want, whatever culture you want. You could be a scientist. It doesn't matter what kind of scientific branch you're in. It doesn't touch your field. It just doesn't go there. It doesn't say anything about it. It just doesn't belong there. It sits squarely and wholly within the realm of philosophy, which is halfway in between art and science. That's the mode of I, as reflected into, I guess, the three types of human acts. There's artistic acts, which are within the subjective field, and they have either their whole presence there or their value or meaning is in the subjective field. And without the subjective field, it's just like an empty husk. It would be kind of like painting to a blind person or music to a deaf person. It exists, but the expression never gets a chance to impress itself upon anyone. So it's rendered as, basically not what it's supposed to be. And that's how you know it's artistic. Because just like with anything else, if you want to know what it is, just remove some essential part of it or it itself, and then see what changes, and then put it back in and see what changes there. And just keep doing that. You'll see what it is that it does, what kind of function it has. So with an economic system, with that being relativistic, that's going to be more philosophical also. It'll be a philosophical movement, but that philosophy is distinct, very separate and independent from a culture. It doesn't quite sink that deeply into the soul the way that a culture does. A philosophy, it kind of floats around ethereally in the mind, but not in the soul, in the eyes, but not in the heart. So I think it's the right way. I think that's the way that makes the most sense for me to take. And hopefully, again, ideally, if I did this the right way, I hope that Christ won't show up because he won't have to, because the system will work well enough that it won't institute some kind of an Armageddon fight between me and the Illuminati, or a civil war that erupts inside of my system. So as long as those two things don't happen, and I really hope they don't, obviously, then I won't have to pray for Christ's return. Because if Christ does return, then that means I'm probably the Antichrist. And if that happens, then I'm probably going to go to hell. And there probably isn't anything that I can do about it. So that would be really, really bad. And I would try anything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen, without having, of course, to violate my principles, because if I do that, then I'll have to go to hell anyway, even if the effect is good. So that's where I think I'm going to leave it for now.